few things in this world that I find more creepy than dolls, and I mean that. Like, maybe it's just me, but I have never gotten a good vibe from a doll. Like, something is just never right with them. Speaking of terrifying cursed dolls, today I'm gonna be diving into some of the most haunted ones that have ever graced the planet. So buckle up, cause this one's a doozy. Starting us off at number 10 is Okiku's doll. In 1918, a young man was visiting a nearby city in Japan where he came across a doll that he decided to bring home to his younger sister, Okiku. The young girl was so excited, she quickly fell in love with the doll and played with it every day. But tragically, a year later, she became very ill and died after a very intense fever. Knowing how important the doll had been to the girl, the family decided to place it in a household altar and began praying to it every day. After only a few days, the doll living at the altar, they noticed that the hair on its head began starting to grow. How is that even possible, they thought? Eventually, the family all came to believe that the spirit of Okiku had taken refuge inside the doll. Then, in 1938, the family decided to place the doll in the care of Menenji Temple, and to this day, it's said that the hair on the doll keeps growing. Allegedly, once it reaches the doll's knees, it's cut short, and every time it grows back. A sample of the hair was even sent to be analyzed, and it came back positive as human hair. I mean, ugh, I just can't. It might not be the scariest doll on the list, but it is still haunted, and that is creepy enough for me. Coming in at number 9 is a cursed Elmo. In 2008, a young boy received an Elmo Knows Your Name doll as a gift from his mom. Great start already, wouldn't you say? Well, not only did Elmo know this kid's name, James, but apparently it verbally threatened him and repeatedly sang the phrase, "Kill James," over and over and over. Now, the thing about this doll is that it's supposed to have to be programmed to say and repeat phrases, but of course no one in his family programmed that into the doll. It seemed to be doing it all on its own after the mother changed the batteries. The mother didn't notice until she heard the boy saying the phrase himself, seemingly parroting his doll, and of course she took it away immediately. Distraught, she called the manufacturer, and after the incident was investigated by Fisher-Price, the family received a voucher for a replacement. And I mean, ugh, just plain creepy. Next up at number 8 is Amelia the Doll. Clearly I am out of the loop, but I had truly no idea just how many allegedly possessed dolls were being sold on eBay. This particularly terrifying toy was auctioned on the site and posted with a warning that read, "This doll is not recommended for the weak at heart, or for any little ones to have in their bedrooms." I mean, doesn't that just sound like the perfect addition to your home? The original owner of the terrifying demon doll claimed that Amelia's eyes used to be blue, but they had turned an unsettling shade of green over time. And apparently, it wasn't until after her eyes changed color that things started to get weird. Eventually, it was purchased by a paranormal enthusiast, and even he began to be creeped out by the thing. He recounts that he would hear juvenile laughter from the room she was kept in, and that on several occasions he saw her waving. But all of that pales in comparison to the day he found her standing alone in the hallway, as if she had been waiting for him to come home. Now, maybe it's just me, but I would have moved cities if I came home to a doll standing in my hallway. Next up at number 7 is Joliet Doll. If there is one thing that horror movies have taught me, it's don't accept unsolicited gifts from someone who you know is angry at you. You never know what it could be hiding. In the case of a woman named Anna, it was a demon doll. Apparently the doll has been passed down 4 generations, but was originally gifted to her great-grandmother by a jealous and bitter friend. It's believed the so-called friend placed an evil curse on the toy that saw the great-grandmother give birth to a girl and a boy. But mysteriously, just 3 days later, the boy passed away. At first it was believed to be a tragic accident, but after the same fate fell on each woman in the family for the next 3 generations, it didn't seem like such a coincidence anymore. The family says at night they can hear the crying and laughter of young voices coming from the doll, and they believe that the doll acts as a vessel for the spirits of the lost sons. And I mean, if that is true, I mean, just how awful of a person do you have to be to place this kind of curse on someone? Like, actually, what is wrong with you? Coming in at number 6 is eBay Voodoo Doll. Listen, why anyone would buy a doll that was advertised as being haunted is beyond me, but I guess there are some people who live for the thrill of potentially being attacked by a demon, and who am I to judge? The eBay listing in question advertised a terrifying voodoo doll that was bound and chained inside a metal box with explicit instructions to never remove it, otherwise you would release its evil powers. Now, I get it. So much is fake on the internet, and maybe she thought it was a hoax, but I mean, why even take the chance? Still, she paid no attention to the instructions and removed the doll as soon as it arrived. It didn't take long before strange things were happening in her house. She began hearing loud tapping noises in every room and would have vivid nightmares that always ended in her being woken up abruptly after finding the doll in a place she had never left it. One morning, she even woke up covered in scratches. Eventually, she got so afraid that she decided to send the doll back to the seller just to get it out of her house. But to her horror, the package was returned with a note that said resident deceased. I mean, that is more than just a creepy coincidence if you ask me. Coming in at number 5 is a blindfolded doll. In June of 2014, a creepy doll was found on the side of a busy road in Singapore. The doll was left under a tree, blindfolded by a piece of cloth that was covered in Arabic writing Bismillah, meaning in the name of Allah. I mean, isn't that just a recipe for disaster? After the doll's discovery, a mysterious post appeared on Reddit. It claimed that the doll was known to be possessed by an evil entity and that it could walk and even talk on its own. Apparently, the original owner was so afraid that the doll was going to kill her or hunt her down if she tried to give it away that she decided to blindfold it to make sure it couldn't see where she went after she left it abandoned. And for good measure, she wrote the Arabic phrase in hopes that it would keep the evil curse trapped within. According to witnesses who found the doll on the road, it mysteriously vanished not long after it was found, and many believe that the curse was passed on to someone who found it and unknowingly removed the curse-trapping blindfold. At the moment, no one actually knows where this cursed doll is, but it's widely believed that it will return to the same roadside once it is done with its current victim. In at number 4 is Robert the Doll. In 1904, a boy named Robert Eugene received a doll as a present from his grandfather. Robert was so excited about the gift that he even named the doll after himself. Almost immediately, his parents felt like something wasn't right. They claimed they would hear Robert speaking to his doll at night and that a strange voice would answer back. As time went on, Robert got more and more attached, and his parents began noticing that his behavior was changing for the worse. When they would notice something strange, like furniture in different rooms or objects scattered around the house, Robert would get extremely defensive and blame everything on the doll. Why the parents didn't just get rid of it at this point, I have no idea. Things only got creepier as Robert got older. He kept the doll even as an adult, bringing it with him to his new home with his wife. At least by now, he had the sense to leave it in the attic. But still, neighbors that walked past said the doll was always looking out the window and would watch as you walked by, often changing his expression as if he was taunting you. Years later, when Robert and his wife died, the new owner found the doll in the attic and said that every night they could hear eerie giggling coming from above. Thankfully, today it's locked behind a glass in a museum, but nonetheless, you will never catch me visiting. In at number 3 is Charley. First discovered in the attic of an old Victorian home in 1968, upstate New York, the cursed Charley doll was found locked away inside a trunk along with newspapers dating back to the 30s and a stained piece of paper that had the Lord's Prayer written on it. Now listen. This feels like when you're watching a horror movie and the walls start bleeding or something and the family goes, oh, that's weird. Better unpack. Like, why would you take this creepy old doll from a locked trunk with a prayer written on him and think, better put this on display in the living room? Well, whatever their reasoning, that's exactly what they did. And soon they started to get creeped out when they found the doll was moving places all on its own. Not long after that, the youngest daughter in the house came forward saying that Charley had spoken to her in the middle of the night. The parents dismissed it at first, thinking she was just making it up, but noticed that each of their young family members was becoming growing increasingly afraid with each passing day. The final straw was when the young girl was found covered in strange, inexplicable scratches from head to toe, and thankfully at this point they decided to lock back up the demon doll. Today, Charley apparently resides in a local oddities shop in Massachusetts, and you can go pay him a visit if you dare. Coming in at number 2 is Peggy. I can only imagine how many people try to play tricks on paranormal investigators. Truly, I'm sure that they receive countless fake cursed objects from people just trying to freak them out or annoy them in some way. But when Jane Harris, who apparently specializes in haunted dolls, received a package in the mail, it did not take her any time to figure out that this one was real. Inside the package was a blonde-haired doll with a note explaining that her name was Peggy and that she was haunted. Apparently, the woman who mailed it had tried seeking a priest to exorcise the doll, but it was unsuccessful and the woman no longer wanted her in her house as she was starting to fear for her life. Jane began an investigation immediately, posting numerous photos online for feedback. Not a day later, she had 80 emails claiming that the photos of Peggy had made them nauseous or given them intense migraines. Then she got the most frightening message of all. Apparently, one woman suffered a heart attack after looking at the photo, and while she survived, I mean, a heart attack from a photo of a doll is just straight up terrifying. After just 4 days in her custody, Jane began feeling Peggy's wrath and suddenly became very ill. But when a friend took the doll away, Jane's health improved immediately. Peggy does not like anyone to know much about her, but she is known to invade people's dreams and give them haunting news. One woman said Peggy came to her in a dream telling her to watch out for her cat. The next morning, her cat was dead. After a while, the spirit that was trapped in this doll made life very difficult, and so Jane eventually gave it to a museum. Peggy is now locked away under constant supervision and actually requires a waiver before you can see her face to face. And last up in our number 1 spot is Annabelle. Now listen, you didn't really think I was gonna do a top 10 list of cursed dolls and leave out our dear and precious Annabelle, did you? As you may or may not know, Annabelle was gifted to a nursing student named Donna back in 1970 by her mom. But mere days after receiving the doll, Donna and her roommate Angie knew that something was wrong. After about a month, the roommates began finding disturbing messages lying around their apartment, warning them to help Lou. Lou was one of their friends who had apparently warned the girls of the doll since day 1. Eventually things got so creepy that the women contacted a medium who told them not to be afraid, that the doll was merely possessed by a young girl named Annabelle Higgins, who had died on the property years prior. The medium advised them that Annabelle felt safe here and would like to stay. The women agreed, but that was all part of the demon's plan. Not long after, Lou stayed over, and when he awoke from a nightmare, he found he couldn't move his body. And then, like straight out of a horror movie, he says Annabelle walked up his body and strangled him until he passed out. He told his friends what happened and they freaked out. They contacted a priest who put them in touch with paranormal investigators Ed and Lorraine Warren. They discredited the medium and said it was in fact a very dangerous demon possessing the doll, and that it had tricked the medium to convince them to let it stay in the house. Thankfully, nowadays the demon doll is locked up tight in a glass case inside their occult museum, but even so, do not cross it. It was reported one man who visited the museum mocked the doll and only a few days later died after losing control of his motorbike. Well, there you have it guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments if you know of any other spooky haunted dolls. I'm Kennedy and I'll see you next time.